about 1 inch past, right?
Yes. Just.
Up to this point, as far as you guys can see, everything seems to be going as planned. The lift is on site. We should be ready to install. It shouldn't take long and we'll be back to work in no time. However, in the back of my mind, I had some weighing concerns that I just haven't shared with you guys, but I have shared with many others. A lot of people have pulled together and got involved with me on this one, because not only is this my safety and other people's property, but whoever may help me along the way in this adventure. Where you see me now, I'm in the paint booth and we're measuring out what appears to be a drain pipe. However, after further investigation, this is more than just a drain pipe. It's a 19-inch corrugated pipe that runs over 45 feet straight through the middle of the bay where I wanted to place our lift. And this is a major concern to me, because we only have about 3.5 inches of concrete on top. So I went as far as getting a structural engineer involved. And in the end, we decided it'd be best to place the lift off of the pipe another 6 to 8 inches.
140.
We're gonna do it. Yeah, so I want the post on this side. So
You want the power on this side?
yeah, so the power is gonna be, this post is gonna be here. That post I gotta spend 180.
Overworking on the lift.
Hello? No, not throwing holes yet. So why do they have the hole drill and the slot on everything? Of course, there's a nut on the bottom.
There's 2 top plates, 1 for each tower, and they came with the pulleys already installed. Now you see it's getting ready to string the cables. There's a cable for each side. The cable, it consists of one end that has a crimped connection that will not go anywhere, and the opposing side of the cable has a threaded, like a threaded rod. It's crimped to it. The threaded rod will be able to pass through. So for now, all we're worried about is fishing it down through the hole, pulling the cable as far as we can until it hits the crimp, and we're going to repeat that process on the opposing tower. We were having trouble fishing this one through. My buddy Al just showed up, and he's like, hey, why don't you just take a piece of TIG wire, fish it up through that hole, tape it to your cable, and pull it through. It worked great. Thanks, Al.
Bring it all the way down, we stand close. And once you have it standing,
Then
it tells you lift it up to set the first locks. Do you want to keep it this way, or you want to bring this over?
Why don't you go a little bit on both
Well,
sides?
if you go this way, it gives you more room here for a lift
Yeah, that's
between
right.
the two.
But you also don't want to be touching the wall too much.
You got to walk through here. You got a fat bell like me, you might not fit by here.
So I can split the difference there.
That's what I would do.
From this
What do we have, Andy?
144.
144 for 136.
That's it.
You go 4 and 4.
4 and 4.
Four.
this tower is a square weight tower.
It's 135 and 13.
It's not square, we're total. Here, now remeasure it. Yep. Now you're within a 1/16 of an inch.
As you seen us running that chalk line earlier, we were already off of the pipe, but then we decided to go additional 6 inches. So that chalk line is giving us a straight edge to measure off of. So once we get everything square, and that's off the back wall, if you're a little bit off, you'll know right away. And then you just got to get it to where they're squared up at 136 1/4 on both sides, and measure the same distance away from your chalk line.
Measure.
Once we were all squared up, now it's time to drill the holes. We went and ran a smaller pilot hole first because we tried running a 3/4 inch right off the bat, and the concrete is just so hard. So we're going to drill them all out, hammer in the 3/4 inch anchors, and then torque them down to 100 foot-pounds. One step that I didn't capture was shimming up the base of the tower. However, if you look closely, you will see the shims, and that's because we had to square everything up and make sure everything was level with the tower, straight up and down, in and out, and side to side. Once you get that all shimmed in place, then you can put in your anchors. You want to make sure wherever your bolts are, they're shimmed up, nice and snug, because you don't want to go distorting the base and whatnot. So use shims wherever you have a gap, and make sure you're nice and level. In this next step, they have us raising the carriage to the first lock. I accidentally took it up to the second lock, not realizing it. However, I don't think it really made that big of a difference. Now we're taking the cable from the opposing side and running it up through. It's going to run up behind the carriage to an upper pulley and then back down and attach. And this is where it has the, I don't know what you call it, like a crimped end. This goes through the bottom, goes around that pulley, all the way across, and it goes straight up. Around the top, and we'll come down. Now we're repeating the same step on the opposing side. And this is where it'll be attached to this carriage and adjustments can be made. You're gonna be a movie star, aren't you? We're just gonna get it somewhat close, run it through. Now for the hydraulic lines. They're pretty straightforward. They're going to get hooked up to the bottom of each cylinder. There's already hard pipes that were previously installed. They're all taped. I checked to make sure they're tight. However, the hydraulic lines, they're using flared fittings, so you don't have to use any tape with them. You just put them on and tighten them up. Then we have the center union. It's pretty straightforward. However, they give you just enough hydraulic hose on the two shorter sides. So you're going to have to pull them together. Get one started, then pull it into the other, because we don't want any extra slack in them hoses anyway. Otherwise, they're just going to get tangled up with the cable.
At the same time, look at that.
Seems like you actually know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Did it once or twice. Just not on the left. There. Just hold that from spinning. Start a little bit under. And as I tighten, I'm sure it'll spin up a little bit. That's that.
This longer to 3 hydraulic lines is going to get fished under where the hydraulic cylinder mounts. And then there's a hole on the back side of the column that'll get fished through there and then up the column, ultimately landing at the hydraulic valve body by the pump.
I also later found that there was 4 rubber washers that were supposed to go in between the mount of the motor and the mount that's attached to the column. I later installed them. However, at this point, before you put that nut on, you want to place 2 of those rubber washers on so it gets sandwiched between both brackets.
Right there? Okay.
Looks good, huh?
Yeah. I'm gonna need another wrench to put here, I think. Okay.
Now for the single point lock release cable. So there's a cable that's going to run from one column to the other so you can unlatch the safeties from one side. However, they have everything together except for they didn't install the pulleys. So I got to pretty much disassemble this whole mechanism to get the pulley to fit over top of its retainer. This really isn't pulling anything. This is just a release. Pin. Should have him do that. Let me take our little snapper here. Oh yes. There you go. Now I'm gonna need a screwdriver or something. Oh, I think that's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much it's the same deal with this cable. It's got one crimp side and one side that's simply cut. So what I'm doing now is fishing it up through a little hole that they have drilled through the one shaft, and then it's going to wrap around that pulley and then feed back down through the column. Then there's another pulley on the lower side of the column that cable will wrap around, then go across the floor, around another pulley, and up to the single point release handle, which will have another pulley on it as well that we'll have to install. Just stick that there for now. This is going to be the side of our single point release for the safety latches. Same thing here. It's got the smaller of the two pulleys on it. The cable is going to wrap around and then go through a hole, which is going to be sandwiched between two nuts, and that's where we're going to adjust our cable at later on.
I just pull it. We'll just make it snug, right?
I didn't really care for the way the spring was riding so close to the edge of that rod. So what you see me do there was just simply tweak it just a little bit to get it in further. That way it doesn't pop off.
It's right in there.
Now we're getting ready to install the lifting arms onto the carriage. And what I found when I went to pre-fit the pins to make sure they freely went into their holes, they wouldn't fit through. When I looked closer, I realized that there was welding slag. Plus the welding slag was painted over. So what I find works most times in the past is if you get yourself a flat punch and you get right on top of that slag and you whack it with a hammer, it usually just chips right off.
There you go, that's a little better, huh?
What you see here, these are safety locks, and I'll demonstrate these more later. They're to keep the arms from kicking out from underneath the vehicle if they were to slip off of their surface.
It looks real good.
Alright, we're just about there, getting ready to test fire this for the first time. Got it topped off with oil. We got a little bit above the min mark for now. We used AW32 hydraulic oil. We picked that up at Advanced Auto. I wanted a quick spot that I could disconnect the power just in case the contactor or the momentary push button were to fail and the lift started going away on us as we released the button. And it's happened, guys. There's actually warnings all over this thing, how they don't want you cycling the button more than in between 2-second intervals. Because when you start cycling it fast, what it does, it chatters the contacts. It could arc them, they could kind of weld themselves together essentially, and you'll let go of the lift and then it'll just keep on lifting the car. If at all possible, put some kind of local disconnect. I didn't have a local snap switch or anything. However, a friend of mine that's an electrician, he had this. So it's just another 30 amp breaker located right at the lift. And if it's running, it starts running away on us, we can just throw the switch. It isolates the power. That way we're not just putting an e-stop in line with the control side. And if it's your contactor that sticks, then it's not going to do you much good. It's just going to keep on running. It's going to be a false protection. When you put a safety in line like this, they do sell 30 amp double pole switches for single phase 240 or 220, whatever you got. And it'll essentially look like a light switch, and that would work as well. That's what I was gonna go with, and he's like, I got one better for you. And he threw this up for me. It's a 30 amp circuit, so you wanna use a minimum of 10 gauge. Now we're actually live. So they say to have it resting on the first stops. We have it resting on the second. That just happens to be the way we installed it. I got about the same amount of tension on each cable. But first we're gonna just make sure this thing works. Here we go. The hydraulic fluid had to get to the cylinders and fill them up to the point to where we have the carriages lifted. So it took quite a bit of running before it primed and filled those cylinders up. Now we got to figure out how to bleed them. And you want to listen to the clicks of the safeties latching in. So I'm going to take it up off of this first one. I'm actually going to let it all the way down. I'm going to try to just cycle this cylinder as much as possible. My hopes is I got the hydraulic fluid into the cylinders at this point. So there's really no sense of going any higher with it. If I lower the carriages all the way down and then fully compress the cylinders into itself, at that point I should have all the air that might have been trapped out. So then the next time I go to lift it, in my mind, with theory, all the air should be out and I should be relatively clear to start operation.
It's latching.
I gotta get the kids home because they got school tomorrow. So that's probably gonna conclude this video. At least we got it up, got it wired, made its first test run, and we'll have a few little tweaks to do here and there. That's nice. And how these work, now I can kick these underneath the car, adjust them where I want them. And one of the major concerns with a post look like this was if it slipped off the frame, it would kick the rail out from underneath it. So the way these work, if you watch it, as soon as I start raising it, it'll lock into place. We got to make some fine-tune adjustments tomorrow. But however, they won't kick out. And then as soon as I lower it, should on the release. I have to reach down and hold it. Now I'm going to go around and adjust these locks. As you can see, I got this one adjusted to where it falls in relatively smoothly. And no matter where I put it in its orientation, it pretty much drops right in. And you can see how this one isn't seating all the way down like it should. That's because it's not meshing right. Let's loosen up all 3 bolts. And then I can adjust that a lot better. So what I found worked on the last one is I put it to the center. Like you see there, it's snug up on this end. Snug up on the middle. And then turn it off to the side like so. At that point I can tighten this back one up as well because it's no longer going to move. Okay, I'm just going to repeat that process on the other 2. Alright, now for adjusting the safety cables. I played with these quite a bit. And what I finally came to was I raised the lift. You can see the first safety lock back there and how it has that wedge. And I'm just creeping up on its chamfer edge. If you come over here, it's pretty much in the same exact spot. As I raise it, it should simultaneously click. I know it's probably hard to hear the other one from here. Listen for this one to click and watch. That's hooked up to the safety cable, so that's going to move every time the latch moves. In addition, when I let it down onto the locks, they both land at the same time. I'm not sure, but I think these are on upside down. These little brackets. I believe that these are trays. There's no way they're going to sit inside within that direction. Little trays for bolts or whatnot. Lug nuts. Actually, that feels good. Before I get too high, I'm just going to let it down and see if it comes down evenly at this point. You ready? Yeah, see, that one's hitting first. So we're still going to have to make some cable adjustments. But, I don't know what a difference, huh?